Hello and welcome to That Atheist Show. I'm Preston, that atheist dude.
I'm Connie, that atheist lady. Tonight, first, we're going to talk about Discover. It has been launched, and it's up about there in space, about 1 million miles away from Earth, in the Lagrange, which is a spot that lets it sit to where it stays there, whatever.
In orbit
And
around the
so
planet.
yeah, so it's not getting pulled towards Earth or away from Earth. It's just going to hang out there and stay in that spot and get some really awesome imagery for us to monitor climate change and solar storms and things of that nature.
Yeah, it's basically a satellite that gets full images of Earth so that we can see the whole picture instead of just little composite pictures. We actually have a video that we like to show you that explains it a little bit better than we can, so we'll go ahead and show that.
Have you seen this image? Chances are the answer is yes. It's the iconic blue marble image, the first photo of the whole Earth. It was taken on December 7, 1972 by the American crew of the Apollo 17 mission. In the decades since Apollo 17, NASA has released a number of other blue marble images. But because we've never permanently positioned a spacecraft at the appropriate distance and with the appropriate equipment needed to take photos of the entire Earth, many of the images that we use to visualize the Earth are composites. That means they stitch together multiple images taken by satellites in order to create what only appears to be a seamless portrait of the planet as a whole. Composite imaging is an extremely valuable tool for helping us study the Earth. It also allows us to produce remarkable images like the black marble, which shows a global view of the city lights across our planet. Until now, though, we haven't had the capacity to take snapshots of the entire Earth on a regular basis. That's where the Deep Space Climate Observatory, or DSCOVR mission, comes in. DSCOVR is a satellite that was launched earlier this year as part of a collaboration among NASA, NOAA, and the U.S. Air Force. The mission has multiple purposes. It will help NOAA monitor the sun for space weather, which has the potential to severely disrupt our nation's telecommunications infrastructure and power grid. And it will help us understand how heat and radiation move across our Earth's atmosphere. DSCOVR also contains a powerful instrument called the Earth Polychromatic Imaging Camera. From DSCOVR's orbit about 1 million miles away from Earth, this camera will take periodic snapshots of our planet at 10 different wavelengths. Not only will these snapshots provide valuable Earth observations that will support a number of climate science and other Earth science analyses and assessments, but they'll also provide, for the first time, a near real-time stream of blue marble images that will both inspire and educate. These images will be available online for anyone to view and download for free. This is a fabulous new capability and a valuable new scientific resource.
So yeah, that's basically awesome. Can't hear you, Preston.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry. So this whole entire time we've been seeing just puzzle pieces basically of the Earth, and now we're going to be able to see a scan of the entire planet. We're going to be able to see weather changing on its own real time, unlike satellites that only see a small part at one specific time, and then they'll see different parts. Different news stations will have different satellites that they're using, things like that. So this is really awesome stuff.
Yeah, it's going to be a whole new way for us to keep an eye on climate change and weather and be able to better understand why things happen within our own atmosphere, and that's a pretty big deal.
It'll be easier to analyze an experiment and just basically see how we might have an effect on climate change. It'll be easier to check that issue because we're seeing the whole entire world being affected at the same time, instead of just little images of here and there. I mean, Google Maps isn't very accurate. It can take pictures of different spots, but they're almost never in the same time period. You'll always see different spots being in different, like you'll have somebody that wasn't there on the day that somebody else was there two blocks over. It's not the same as what we'll be able to see with this.
Yeah, and it's really important that we're going to be able to uh, detect radiation and like solar storms and things like that further in advance than we've been able to in the past. Because those things can really affect stuff here on Earth, like cell phone signals and stuff of that nature.
Our entire communications could get knocked out from a solar flare. So, I mean,
Yeah.
that can go into Mad Max mode really fast.
Yeah, so it'd be if there ever was like a major one, we would have some warning to try to, you know, combat any craziness that could happen.
And for most followers of climate change and things like that, I mean, it's pretty undeniable the science behind it all. But we still have people in office and in the White House just like setting off the craziest claims. We actually have a video. I know that probably everybody's seen it, but we just have to bring it up for the for the sake of the topic. It's Jim Inhofe claiming that, well, we don't have to worry about climate change.
And so you don't have the advantage of knowing the story that's behind this. And the story that's behind this that's back when they first started all the hysteria on global warming. And it happened to be a snowstorm that had been unprecedented. It set a record that year. And there's a charming family of 6, I say to my friend in the chair, that built this. And their picture is here. And that happens to be my daughter and her family of 6. And at that time, it got a lot of attention. Actually, it got a lot of national attention. And in case we have forgotten, because we keep hearing that 2014 has been the warmest year on record, I asked the chair, you know what this is? It's a snowball. And that's just from outside here. So it's very, very cold out, very unseasonal. So here, Mr. President, catch this.
So yeah, we still have people like that. I mean, we we need this camera out there so we can just show these guys exactly what we're talking about.
So they can have even more evidence on top of all of the evidence that we already have that climate change is actually happening.
But if you're going to bring a snowball into an argument about climate change, and you're going to argue that because the weather that month was allowing snow, that's why climate change isn't happening, he just doesn't have a full understanding of the way it all works. How he's in office?
I don't think he cares to know, though, also. So I'm not sure if all of this new evidence is really going to make a difference for people like that, because he doesn't want to know. He's also somebody that says that it's impossible for climate change to be for humans to be affecting the climate because God is in control of the weather. And and then plus the rapture is going to happen soon anyway, so we shouldn't be worried about it.
Yeah, and
just
these are videos
these
are videos you can look up on YouTube. He actually says these things in this. I think it's the Senate that he's in. He's actually in there, in the House, the courthouse, saying these things.
He is the head of the environmental, he's the environmental chair or something like that. I forget the exact title. Yeah. He
doesn't even know what weather and climate is. Like, how do you just...
No, he doesn't.
Yeah, so let's get to Pluto now. Pluto is awesome. Pluto is full of ice. We're experiencing something that no human before us, before our generation right now existing in this last week, has ever experienced and ever seen in the history of our planet. This is awesome. This is just so exciting. If you're not excited about it, then you probably don't know about it. There's a mission going on that's sending a camera out to Pluto, which is 3 billion miles away, and it's taking pictures right now. And the camera is actually a scanner. It's scanning the planet as it goes by it. Once it passes by, it flies by Pluto, it's going to continue on and just continue sending data back, sending those pictures. Crazy fact about what's going on with the camera is it's sending the pictures back at 1 kilobyte per second. So anybody who's around our age probably remembers AOL and how fast that was. Now, if you want to think about the HD pictures that this thing is sending compared to the pictures we were able to download, are really slow back then. Now, take that speed. This is 56 times slower than AOL. So at this point in time, it's going to take over a year and a half to download all of these pictures that it took last week.
Yeah.
Now, one amazing thing as atheists especially is the fact that this was all done through science. This was all done through math. It was all done through logic. They literally put together formulas and calculations and things that work, things that they experimented with here on Earth that they were able to determine was the correct calculation, the correct formula. Once they figured out what was correct, they got the funding, put this thing together. It only weighs 23 pounds. I have a picture here. This is it going through it's a speed test, I believe. The speed test in 2005 in the NASA's area, and then we got the whole entire deal, New Horizons. 23 pounds. They made it basically out of the same lens that a DSLR would use, which is a typical camera here on Earth that we use pretty much regularly for professional photography. Now, the thing about this camera that's so amazingly awesome is they calculated the conditions of space. And they basically realized that a lot of things are going to get crushed, and a lot of things are going to freeze and get into really cold temperatures, and they're going to shrink. They're going to shrink these materials that make up a camera. So what they did was they took, to make it a consistent shrinkage, they took aluminum only, and they only used aluminum for every component of the camera except for the lens itself, which is glass. So what they did was they set the glass down at the certain size that they would need. Once all of the material shrunk to a certain size, the lens was already set to be ready to take these pictures. So through 9 years of flying through space, and who knows the temperature out there, who knows the forces that were attacking it the entire time, from the sun, from electromagnetics, from gravity of other planets, asteroids, all kinds of things that it was just flying through. And they calculated perfectly. They calculated exactly how much the material would shrink around the lens and then be able to take these pictures. And what's crazy is they used an aperture, which photographers would know about. It's what allows a certain amount of light into the lens to get you these pictures. Now, they calculated and knew that at this distance from the sun, they're basically behind Pluto at this point, and they were using such a small amount of light from the sun because they're so far out there that they set up the lens to have that perfect aperture and bring out these images that we're seeing. We'll go ahead and pull these up. That's Pluto being Pluto. And so they're pulling these images out. And they're able to see these icy mountains. These mountains they've calculated to be 2 miles high. This is the kind of definition and resolution that this camera is catching as it's flying past the planet. Now, one really cool fact about it is that they're figuring out that it's geologically transforming, that they think that it's maybe not so old as they originally thought it was. It might only be around 100 million years old. They really don't know yet. They're still examining everything. But, I mean, this is an awesome discovery. Connie, what do you think about this?
Yeah, before this, they thought that it was impossible for objects to, have formed to this point and be that young. And that's making them question the age of things of like Europa and other bodies within our solar system, that possibly there's parts of our solar system that aren't as old as we think that they might be. So, and we couldn't have known these things, or we couldn't be learning these things unless we did this mission to send it out there. And one of the interesting things is that there was a mission called TOPS that was being planned back in the 70s that it didn't get funded. And if it had
after a
been
bunch of
funded,
politics and a bunch of crazy
Yeah.
like back office things, it just ended up not getting funded.
Yeah, a bunch of politics happened and it didn't get funded. And so if it had been funded, TOPS would have passed Pluto in 1986. So the year that I was born, we would have had imagery of Pluto. But instead, now I'm 29, and now we're getting these images of Pluto. And so it just goes to show that a lot of politics and funding conflicts and things go on behind the scenes of these things. And it makes you wonder if humanity kind of got its priorities straight a little bit, if like where would we be now? Like what would we know?
And what's crazy is back then, this 30, 40 years ago now, they had $44 billion budget, and today they have $14 billion in their budget. So that's $30 billion loss compared to just 30 years ago, and that's with inflation and all that stuff. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, if we wanted to back then, if as a society we had put space exploration as the priority, then there's no telling what we could have done with all that money. Which, of course,
with all that knowledge too, not just the money, but the knowledge from seeing other planets and how they're transforming.
Yeah, we could be far beyond where we are and be learning about just all kinds of crazy new things that we haven't even thought of yet, because we're just now getting to where we could have been 29 years ago.
Yeah, it's pretty sad, the progression that we've lost just on politics, just on the need for money to be able to explore outside of our planet. I mean, the fact that we even pay for our planet alone.
But then there were some things, good things, that came out of the TOPS mission not happening. Scientists kind of took their argument over which mission they thought needed to happen to the public, and that made the scientific community not be thought of as seriously. And so now... Yeah,
they argued in front of Congress.
They argued in front of Congress about what mission should happen, and that made Congress not take funding either of those missions very seriously. And so now scientists kind of duke things out behind the scenes, and everybody gets on the same page before they go to talk about funding. So that's one good thing that happened. And we also got Voyager 1 and Voyager 2, which have been great crafts.
They showed us like Venus. I think
they showed us Venus and Saturn and Jupiter. Then because scientists planned in advance to make the crafts last longer than originally intended, we also got to see Uranus and Neptune.
And the cool thing about TOPS, though, like the whole original mission, was that they were going to use gravity assistance and actually literally see all of the planets between us and Pluto. They were going to see Pluto last in 1986, but they were going to basically slingshot between each planet and hit Pluto, and that's how it was going to happen. Yeah,
because they were going to launch in... what year was it? 1979, I think it was
76.
76. Yeah, they were going to launch in 76, and like all of the planets were going to be aligned in a way that they won't be aligned again until 2156. So, and they were going to use the gravitational pull of all the planets to get the craft out there. And so that's an opportunity that was lost, which with New Horizon, they figured out how to launch around Jupiter to kind of make up for that. But it's a once in a lifetime opportunity that we had, that because of petty squabbles between fellow humans, we didn't accomplish.
Yeah, one of the guys actually wanted to use nuclear rockets, and he wanted to use that to boost from planet to planet. And that argument is what split Congress, and they were just like, wait, so you want to do this and you want to do that? You guys didn't talk about this before you came to see us? Well, you just made our job easy. We're just going to reject it altogether. And
exactly, yeah.
It's pretty ridiculous.
But I mean, now we've accomplished it, but in a totally different way, in a way that, costs more money than it would have if we'd have done it then. And just so hopefully in the future we can get more on the same page and not have these kind of arguments, which, like I said, scientists did learn to keep those arguments out of Congress and out of the public eye. I guess they just like scream at each other at NASA or something instead now. But
in the boardrooms.
Yeah.
But and then even with this New Horizons mission, that almost didn't go through also. There were a few hiccups with that. One thing that happened was they had calculated the deadline, and they were worried about getting the budget through until 2006. And they knew for a fact that Pluto wouldn't be in this nearby position again, and they wouldn't be able to use Jupiter as a slingshot for another 200 years. So scientists were sweating over it, and all of a sudden, I think in 2003 they got the funding for it. Bill Nye, I saw a video where he said that he was a huge part of that. He was the one that was actually bringing it to Congress for funding, and he was the one that was really advocating for the mission to Pluto, and it ended up working, and now we're able to see this whole new world. One thing we want to show is why did we send it out there? What can we learn from it? We're going to show this video here.
Of all the Earth-Moon-like systems in all the solar system, Pluto might not come to mind, but maybe it should. Hey guys, Amy here on D News Today, taking you all the way to Pluto. Well, not literally. We're all pretty familiar with Pluto. If you're around my age, Pluto was very much a planet in your grade school science books. But then in 2006, it was reclassified as a dwarf planet, and a lot of people mourned that loss. But Pluto is still out there, and the New Horizons mission is a little over a month from its closest encounter with this distant body. But we're not just going to Pluto for the sake of understanding the little planet turned dwarf planet, though of course it's a scientifically important goal. An up-close study of Pluto might actually help us understand our own planet a little more. So first off, Pluto isn't just a little ball of ice somewhere between 680 and 720 miles in diameter, orbiting an average of 3.7 billion miles from the Sun. It's a planet with an atmosphere. Astronomers first found this atmosphere in 1988 when Pluto passed in front of a star. The starlight flickered before being completely obscured by the planet, offering solid evidence of a gaseous medium surrounding the body. Further observations revealed that this atmosphere is composed predominantly of nitrogen. That's pretty uncommon. There are only 3 other bodies in the solar system that we know have nitrogen-rich atmospheres: Saturn's moon Titan, Newton's moon Triton, and our very own Earth. In Pluto's case, the atmosphere constantly regenerates as surface ice sublimates, and that tenuous atmosphere is just pouring off the little planet, much like scientists think the primitive atmosphere escaped from the early Earth. Measuring and understanding how and why Pluto's atmosphere behaves the way it does might help explain how the Earth's atmosphere developed, which could have some interesting implications on how and why it is that our planet alone seems suitable for life. But there's something else Pluto could teach us about Earth, and that's about its relationship with its largest moon, Charon, or Charon. Both pronunciations are correct. For the time being, we know that Pluto has 5 moons: Charon, Hydra, Nix, Styx, and Kerberos. Charon is massive compared to Pluto. It's about half the size of its host planet. It's so big that it doesn't just orbit Pluto. The dwarf planet and its largest moon actually both orbit a point in space between them, making them a binary system. The only other planet with a surprisingly large moon is, you guessed it, Earth. The moon is a little more than a quarter the size of the Earth. That's large enough that both bodies orbit a point just slightly off the Earth's center. Pluto and Charon are also tidally locked to one another, always showing the same face to each other. It's a rare arrangement that, you guessed it, the only other such system is our Earth-Moon system. Notice how you only see one face of the moon? It's tidally locked to the Earth, so we'll never see the far side from home. So with Pluto, we have a celestial body with a nitrogen-rich atmosphere escaping at an alarming rate, and a relatively massive moon showing the same face to that planet. Scientists want to understand all these features because they're fascinating. But if we learn something about our own planet in the process, all the better, because it might help in our future search for life on other planets. So how excited are you guys to get to Pluto? Really excited, or totally beside yourself giddy excited?
So we can learn a lot about our own planet from discovering Pluto and seeing how that works as a thing in the sky. I mean, it's orbiting around the same sun that we are. It's in the same galaxy we are, in the same solar system. It's about time that we get familiar with our exoplanetary neighbors.
Yeah, and it's really pretty neat how many similarities we share with it, especially because I don't think anybody ever thought that we would have so much in common with something so far away. And it's just really awesome.
The planet, I think, is if you take the size of Australia, I think the moon is the same size as the size of Australia or something like that. But we're gonna go ahead and show Sharon. Every time I hear Sharon or think of Sharon, I think of Sharon, come here, Sharon, from Randy on South Park. I just can't get that voice out of my head every single time.
I think of Ozzy Osbourne yelling for his wife, Sharon!
Yeah, right. Well, cool thing, I didn't even know about this. I didn't know that the Earth was a binary with our moon, that we faced the same face every time. So Pluto does the same thing as with their moon. So that's very interesting also, that they have the same gravitational relationship pretty much. And this is a close-up here of the craters on Charon, the impact craters. And they found that in a very small area, and they found that most of Charon is actually pretty smooth. And they found that very strange, and evidence for it to be a very young moon, and also that it's geologically transforming itself, just like what Earth does with earthquakes and things like that. So this is a big enough gravitational relationship to have effects on the land, and there are still other moons around Pluto too, but they're smaller than Charon.
Yeah. And another thing that Pluto has in common with Earth is, and our relationship with the moon, is that people don't think that we've really done this mission. Like, there's conspiracy theorists that think that it's all been made up, and like Pluto doesn't even really exist, and it's some big giant conspiracy from the Illuminati. Just the same way that they think that like the moon landing happened in a studio somewhere, they think that
this also happened in a studio. They think that this
is also fake.
Yeah, they think this is literally a Hollywood studio. Like, that's what they think. They're like, this is in Hollywood. Look at the camera in the background, guys. Look at the camera. See, the camera is from Hollywood. Just like, be quiet, man. It's ridiculous, but this is magnificent. This is one of the coolest feats of humankind that we'll see in our lifetime. I wonder what's next. As an atheist, especially, I wonder what we're going to find next. I wonder what we're going to see next. I wonder what our telescopes will reach next. The next big telescope that might be bigger.
Well, actually, there is a mission being planned to get a better look at Europa.
Yes, I heard about that.
And so we're hoping that that will get approved for the fiscal 2016 year, because it is a $140 million mission. And if that happens, then that could be the next thing that we see in our lifetime, is get a closer look at Europa.
Yeah, what's crazy is Europa is outside of our solar system, isn't it? That's the next...
No, it's one of Jupiter's moons.
Oh, it's one of the moons, right. Okay. Well, Ralph is actually 23 pounds and was launched out there at 36,000 miles per hour that I said earlier? 36,000 miles per hour at launch, flew out 3 billion miles toward Pluto. It's just amazing what science can do. And there are already theists out there that think it was all made up. Already. And they're already making YouTube videos that are showing how everything is in Hollywood studios, and how this guy said he went out with a telescope, looked up at the Pluto, and he's like, I have the same picture. I have the same picture. And it's like, no, it's really not. It's really not the same picture.
Then there's this guy that took a picture of Jupiter from his backyard, and he's like, look how much better my picture of Jupiter from the backyard is than the picture they took of Pluto.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And that same guy is like about to go on some cross-country trip to take pictures of the sky to find proof of chemtrails. So
yeah, I mean, if they find evidence, cool. I'll believe it. If they find evidence, but I very much doubt that they will. I very much doubt it. So we've got Charon, we've got Pluto, we've got Discover going on, got all kinds of things in space happening. It's awesome. We need to unite as a species. We're humans. We're all on the same planet. Why do we have borders? Why are we paying to go from one country to another, getting passports? It's just ridiculous. So I think... I actually just read today that Stephen Hawking is funding one of the most extensive searches in history of mankind for life in the universe. And they're funding it with, I think, $10 billion from a private industry, one of his friends. And they're just... I forgot where it starts. I mean, they just announced it pretty much, I think, this week, just a few days ago. We'll talk more about that in the future, definitely. Next week. Who do we have on next week?
We have Jason Heap. He is the founder of the United Coalition of Reason. So come see us next week, and we will be talking to him.
Yeah, we'll talk about some awesome stuff with him. Talk about the creation of an organization and how to proceed with the separation of church and state, I guess, is basically all that everything involved with activism is concerning. Just making sure that people like Jim Inhofe are not walking into our Senate or Congress with snowballs in their hands trying to just disprove climate change just because you can't do that.
We need to look a little bit more intelligent than this. We need to get some smarter people
qualified
representing us.
At least qualified people that are willing to say I don't know, at least. Not people that say God made climate change, that's the reason it's happening, and if you don't believe me, the Bible says so. That's just not going to work.
Nope, there's absolutely nothing wrong with saying we don't know yet, let's go find out.
Which is why Discover is such an important thing. We're going to try to find out. We're going to scan Earth as it's spinning and figure out what's going on. That's awesome news. So come back to us next week.
Thank you. Yeah. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Have an awesome week, and see you again here, same time, same place.
10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all the good stuff. ThatAtheistShow.com. Check us out. Join our mailing lists. Share our posts. We'll see you all later. Bye.
Bye.